Now, Tanika, if you're on a jury and you're hearing all these Google searches and, all this, what are you thinking as a juror right now?
Well, I'm a little bit of a nerd on this stuff, so I
Mhm.
would be geeking out on all of it and like just all of the cross-referencing of it. It just
Mhm.
would, I don't want to say it would indicate guilt because you're not supposed to make up your mind before, but it would
I know.
indicate, it would raise suspicion.
Hmm.
Um, like it just feels like a clear, who was that? Hansel and Gretel, like the little breadcrumbs, like
Yep,
he's leaving all the little breadcrumbs.
absolutely. So, do you think it's pretty impactful testimony so far and data that we're given? Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Like
yeah.
this is better to me than like an eyewitness or anything else, right? Because the
Mhm.
data doesn't lie. The data
Exactly.
doesn't misremember. It's very
Right.
And
precise.
what's
Right.
funny about that is that Lori on cross-examination tried to actually impeach the data. She tried to impeach the data, Detective
Mhm.
Pillar. And she's like, well, so you get the data from Apple, and how can you trust that that's right? And he's like, well, because I trust Apple to give me correct data. I mean,
Yeah. Was it he?
Right.
He was the one that said certificates of authenticity
yes,
or something.
yes,
Yeah, something along
yep,
those lines. Yeah, yeah.
right.
I feel like she tried to poke fun with the DEA agent and the data, the license plate data too. Like she wasn't taking it seriously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sam, how so far with Hermosillo's evidence that he's introducing? Like, are you seeing it from a defense standpoint? And this would be your client. Are you saying, "Oh boy, we've got a tall mountain to climb," or like how would you be taking this?
There's not a lot of comeback for it. You just sort of hope people don't pay attention to it and move on, I guess.
Right.
Because I think for most people, like Tanika said, the data doesn't lie, but then um, we just saw a Celebrate expert get up and say, "Oh yeah, we changed we that search, House Long to Die in the Cold, it actually that didn't happen where I testified last year, so we just went
Mm-hmm.
ahead and took it out."
Mm-hmm.
And that whole thing, and so then that had me it still has me because I haven't had time to like fully digest that, has me questioning, well, yeah, okay, yes, trust the data, but also no, right? Because Celebrate is it's the gold standard and only available to law enforcement. So that is a that threw some
It was very
issues there.
hard for me to wrap my head around it. I'm like, are you kidding me? Now you're telling me that when I search for something at a specific time, that it's not true anymore. That I still
Right,
can't wrap my head around that.
right. If you are going to commit a crime, then please stop searching for evidence of that crime on
Right,
your damn device. Like, just don't
right,
do it.
right.
You know?
It used to
Oh,
be the CCTV, right? The murder aisle at Walmart, right? That was the kind of running joke for a little while. Then,
mhm,
of course, DNA is always pretty big, but now
mhm,
digital data is like I think that's
mhm.
going to kind of be the new standard, if you will. Like, what do you
Oh,
guys think?
100%. It
Totally.
is
Yeah.
100%. Lori took it to new heights because she went and bought her burner phone at Walmart. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
don't shop at the incident aisle at Walmart because we had to
Oh,
rename
yeah.
it to the incident aisle.
Just in
Go to
case.
the local hardware store that's been around since like 1952. They don't have the cameras that Walmart
They
does.
probably don't have Wi-Fi either, and maybe
Exactly.
not even Bluetooth.
Yes.
Now we're really showing you how to crime.
Be wary of that free Wi-Fi. I think, Sam, people searching is the modern day equivalent of returning to the scene of the crime. They can't help
Mm,
themselves. They just
no, they
gotta
really
know.
can't. They really can't help themselves, and it's just crazy. It's
You know, the
absolutely.
the
Go ahead.
interpretation of the data, though, and the different interpretation of that data in Karen Reed leads me to what I think Lori had a valid motion that she made back before the first trial, that
Mhm.
she
Oh,
was not given, yes, she was not given discovery from the
Yeah.
state of the
Yeah.
gray key data. She was
Right.
given the Celebrite report after the interpretation of the gray key data. but she was never given the gray key data, which is the actual raw data that is extracted from the phone.
But did she
Exactly.
even understand it? Because one, I've got an extraction here for a trial that's coming up, and it is in gray key, but I don't have a Celebrate version of it either.
The fact that her discovery did not include the gray key data, according to Lori's motion and
So
arguments in court.
if they're going to provide that kind of raw data, then most often, right, if I get a magnet report, if I get a Celebrate report, if I get any of that stuff, it comes like what they call an account package. So you can read the 20,000 page PDF that they've generated, or you can open up Celebrate Reader on your machine and pull the extraction in and go through it, which will make you want to leave this earth because it's exhausting and slow. But
there was actually a hearing on that.
was there not any way for her to, like, when the state provided the discovery, which did they not provide any interpretation, just the raw data? So she would have had to have had an expert?
The other way around. So they provided her the report from the extraction in original discovery. So she had that PDF that you're talking about. She didn't have the gray key data, and she didn't know that until her expert Lonnie Dworkin was approved to work on the case in early March, just weeks before the trial started. Right. So he recognized that the state hadn't provided the gray key data. So the state provided the gray key data. And at that point, he's only got 10 hours total that he's approved to work on the case.
Wow.
Yep. I was just going to add that she was complaining that, or she thought that he could get it done in 10 hours. And Judge Boreski's like, this takes months.
Oh my God. No, it's the PDF that you get depends on what report the law enforcement officer who did the extraction decides to give you. So I can understand wanting the raw data, right? But you have to be able to analyze that raw data. I understand why her expert didn't want to rely on the PDF, right? Because the raw data extraction is basically you plug in the device into the machine or the program or whatever, and it just sucks it all out, and then that's it. It's like an image, right? And then it's up to the person who's looking at that raw data to then generate whatever report it is. So if you want to, you can do one of two things. You can rely on the PDF and hope that you're good, or you can say, not so sure that we're good. I'm going to need an expert who can look at the raw data and make sure that we're good.
In observing Lori's investigator, he was not digitally savvy, and they did get the gray key data, and the telephone forensic expert wasn't there yet, and her own investigator was stumbling over because they had a motion before the judge, and it was like you could tell he didn't know. And Trina was trying to explain it to him. He struggled.
Lonnie Dworkin, the expert, tried to work the investigator through it remotely over the phone for 4 hours. He said, I just spent 4 hours on it yesterday and I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, so that's a huge problem with private investigators. I work on some of these cases that you guys see on YouTube. What I know is that, one, the lawyers don't understand it at all, and they see it and they panic when they see the phone stuff. So then it immediately is thrown at me. Well, I'm not an expert, right? I'm not qualified to be an expert in anything except maybe spotting BS. They are reliant on me to say, okay, I have reviewed it, and here's what I see, and here's why I think we need an expert. And then for me to talk to the expert, one of them we've seen testify, I believe, on a case or a trial that you guys covered. Then he also has a law degree and decided to leave the practice of law in order to be the cell phone expert because he makes way more money. So if you get retired law enforcement who go into being private investigators, they don't necessarily, depending on their age and when they left law enforcement, they don't necessarily understand it all either. But the younger investigators who are leaving law enforcement, they do. But the problem is, like, everybody is going to have to learn this. The older lawyers are just like absolutely not there. They just,
Yeah.
they're like deer in headlights, you
Mhm.
know, so they heavily rely on people like me. And then I have to rely on my own wherewithal to go and research everything I possibly can to try to figure it out.
Mhm.
It's not perfect, and it's going to get more and more complex, I think, as we
Mhm.
move forward.